In a quiet corner of a bustling military base in Virginia, a single dad named Marcus Thompson stood holding a tray of coffee and sandwiches, his hands steady but his heart racing. He was just trying to help. What happened next would leave every person in that room speechless. A decorated Navy SEAL looked him dead in the eyes and said the words that cut deeper than any bullet, "You're here to serve, not speak." The room went silent. Marcus, a black single father working 3 jobs to keep his little girl fed and safe, felt the weight of every hard day crash down on him at once. But this story isn't about humiliation. It's about what happens when kindness rises stronger than pride, and when the truth finally walks into the room wearing 4 stars. If this story moves your heart the way it moved mine, take a second right now to subscribe to Whispers of Heart 0.2, hit that like button, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Your support helps these true stories of quiet courage reach more people who need them. Marcus had never planned on becoming a single father. His wife, Helena, had passed 2 years earlier after a sudden illness, leaving him alone with their 5-year-old daughter, Lily. Every morning he woke before dawn, packed her lunch with a little note that said, "Daddy loves you," dropped her at school, then drove across town to the base where he worked as a civilian support staff member. He cleaned, carried trays, restocked supplies, and stayed late when someone needed an extra hand. He never complained. He just showed up. Kindness was the only language he knew how to speak when the world felt too heavy. That particular afternoon the base was hosting a high-level briefing. Senior officers, visiting commanders, and a team of elite SEALs had gathered in the large conference hall. Marcus had been asked to bring refreshments. He moved carefully between tables, offering coffee and setting down plates of sandwiches with a soft, "Here you go, sir." Most of the men nodded or mumbled thanks. One did not. Lieutenant Commander Jake Harlan, a SEAL with a chest full of ribbons and a reputation for toughness, stopped Marcus with a sharp look. "You talking to me?" he said, loud enough for nearby officers to hear. Marcus paused, tray still in his hands. "Just offering coffee, sir. Thought you might want some." Harlan's jaw tightened. "You're here to serve, not speak. Keep your mouth shut and do your job." The words landed like a slap. A few men chuckled under their breath. Others looked away. Marcus felt heat rise in his face, but he only nodded once and stepped back. "Yes, sir." He finished setting the trays without another word, then quietly left the room so no one would see his eyes. Outside in the hallway he leaned against the wall for a moment, breathing slow. He thought of Lily waiting at after-school care. He thought of the nights he sat at the kitchen table helping her sound out words in her reading book after working a double shift. He thought of Elena's voice telling him, "Be kind even when it's hard, Marcus." Especially then. He swallowed the hurt, wiped his face, and went back to work. What Marcus did not know was that the room he had just left held more than one kind of power. Among the officers listening to the briefing were 4 generals who had arrived early and sat near the back. They had watched the entire exchange. General Ruth Ellison, a woman who had spent decades leading troops in places most people only saw on the news, leaned toward the man beside her. "Did you see that?" He nodded. The other 2 generals exchanged glances. None of them spoke during the meeting. They simply waited. When the briefing ended, the SEALs and junior officers began filing out. Harlan was laughing with 2 of his teammates near the door when the 4 generals rose together. The room quieted at once. General Ellison walked straight to Marcus, who had returned to clear the last of the trays. She stopped in front of him, stood tall, and raised her right hand in a sharp, deliberate salute. The three other generals stepped forward and did the same. Marcus froze, tray half lifted. "Ma'am, I don't understand." General Ellison's voice was steady and clear so every person still in the room could hear. "You don't have to understand yet. You just have to receive it." She held the salute until Marcus, stunned, slowly set the tray down and returned it the only way he knew how, with quiet dignity. Then she turned to the SEALs. "Lieutenant Commander Harlan, you told this man he was here to serve, not speak. You were half right. He is here to serve. So are you. So am I. The difference is that some of us remember the people who keep this place running while we talk about strategy. This man lost his wife and still shows up every day with more grace than most of us manage on our best mornings. He serves his country by serving his daughter and by treating every person in this building with respect. That is leadership. That is strength. And that is why 4 generals just saluted a single dad carrying coffee." Harlan's face had gone pale. The laughter was gone. Around the room, officers stood a little straighter. One of the younger SEALs stepped forward and offered Marcus his hand. "I'm sorry," he said simply. Others followed. Harlan stayed silent for a long moment, then walked over. His voice was quieter now. "I was out of line. I forgot what service actually looks like when the cameras aren't rolling. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson." Marcus looked at him, then at the generals, then at the floor for a second while he gathered himself. When he spoke, his voice was calm. "I accept your apology. My daughter asks me every night if I was kind today. I want to be able to tell her yes. So thank you for giving me the chance to keep being that way." Word of what happened spread through the base by the next morning. People who had walked past Marcus for months without a second glance now stopped to ask how Lily was doing in school. Someone left a small bag of her favorite snacks on his desk with a note that said, "For the real hero." General Ellison made sure Marcus received recognition for his quiet excellence, and more importantly, she made sure the story traveled further than the base gates. Kindness, once ignored, had become impossible to overlook. Marcus never asked for any of it. He still woke before dawn. He still packed Lily's lunch with a note. He still carried trays when asked. But something had shifted. The weight he carried felt lighter because other people had finally seen the load and chosen to share it. On the drive home that evening he stopped at a red light and looked at the empty passenger seat where Elena used to sit. "We're still doing okay," he whispered. "We're still choosing kindness." In a country that often celebrates the loudest voices and the biggest medals, it is easy to forget that real strength sometimes wears a simple work shirt and speaks only when spoken to. Marcus Thompson reminded an entire room of elite warriors that service is not measured by rank alone. It is measured by how we treat the people who cannot promote us, who cannot write our evaluations, who simply show up and keep the world turning while the rest of us argue about how it should turn. If you take anything from this story, let it be this: the next time you are tempted to dismiss someone because of their job, their skin, their quiet voice, or the weight they carry alone, stop. Look again. The person you almost overlooked might be the one holding more courage than you will ever know. And the kindest thing you can do is salute that courage, with your words, your respect, or simply by choosing not to make their day harder. Kindness does not need a stage. It does not need permission. It only needs one person willing to offer it when it would be easier not to. Marcus offered it every day. 4 generals answered. And a room full of warriors learned that true service begins the moment we remember we are all here for one another. Go be that person for someone today. The world is waiting for the kind of strength that never raises its voice, yet changes everything.